Hello and welcome, everybody. This is the Responsibility That We Carry Athletic Support Service Learning Series. I am your co-host, Travis Ballard, and I currently serve as the N4A ECC Institutional Partnership Program Chair. And our co-host is Mr. Quadro Steele. He currently serves as our co-chair for the ECC IPP subcommittee as well. Today, we bring you part one of our series on motherhood, and we have two dynamic leaders within the intercollegiate athletic industry. We are joined today by Chastity Friesen, Associate Athletic Director of Academic Support Services at the University of Maryland, and Dr. Ivana Rich, Associate Vice President and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics at Edward Waters University. This is an incredible duo, and we have an amazing cast right now. Chastity is an all-star in every space she walks into, from within her athletic department and inside of her home. Her current responsibilities include monitoring NCAA and Big Ten eligibility and providing academic support to the men's basketball and women's gymnastics programs. She also oversees the GSAC part-time professional internship program and is a member of the Academic and Compliance Subcommittee of Athletics Council. And Chastity and her husband welcomed their son Jackson in May of 2021.
So we had a competition here. We were going to see who could dig up the most stuff and give the best intros. So I got Dr. Ivana Rich, who I've sat across the table from in a lot of MEAC meetings. So I had to do some digging. I found out some interesting stuff. First of all conference volleyball player at VCU. Also holds the records for blocks, I want to say, and hitting percentage or overall percentage. Member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, daughter of a football coach, and Dr. Michelle Bell, who is the first doctoral degree candidate at Virginia State University. Am I correct on that?
You're correct.
That boy was digging, let me tell you. Started in the field 2010 as a volleyball coach, did assistants, did a head role at Virginia State, jumped into the field around 2015, has ascended through the heights, like I said, at Norfolk State, where she was a superstar. Did not realize that every time I was sitting across from her, she was at a different role. She was an assistant AD to acting AD, and then currently is the first African-American female athletic director at Edward Waters University. And my middle son used to say that you don't get to be an African-American until you do something in history. I don't know where he got that from, but so you're a true African-American history fact. And more importantly, mom of 6-year-old Melanie. Welcome, Dr. Rich. Did I do that right?
You did. You definitely did some digging there.
We love it. We love all of your accolades, both from Chastity and Dr. Rich. We're super excited to get in this topic. I want to start by saying I love that each of your bios on your website include your motherhood identity. As we know, there are many examples of how motherhood intersects with earning power, career trajectory, and political power. But not enough is said of how it positively impacts you. So for our first question, how has motherhood positively impacted your job and professional career? And we'll go with Chastity first.
You know, one of the biggest things that it has really taught me is to be vocal and be intentional about what I'm doing. You know, I have to really think about my son and my husband. You know, my husband works in athletics as well. We work in the same academic unit. His office is right down the hall from mine. So, and he works with football. So when you think about, you know, he's a director of football academics. I work with basketball. You know, those could be considered, you know, two of your at-risk sports. And so a lot of it is just being intentional about, you know, what I'm doing, and have honest conversations with my husband, with my superiors, with my coworkers, to really make sure that I'm able to, you know, balance my professional career and still be a present mother and wife as well. And I'm just gonna add on to that. I think for me, you know, it's really provided me with
the space and the courage to be more empathetic. I know we try to be tough on our student athletes, but I think being a parent, it has really provided that different aspect of giving my student athletes grace as well as myself in these spaces. And I think that's definitely a tribute to motherhood. And just, when you have a little person, they require so much grace. And and so I think that translates well over to working with student athletes, young adults who need the same thing. They're still learning, they're still developing. I think these are critical years in their lives. And so I would definitely say it provided me with those qualities, or heightened them for me. And then also, I think, really assisted me in learning what it really means to meet young people where they are. Wherever they are in their journeys, meeting them where they are and helping them to build from that starting point. And understand that they all are different, they have diverse needs. But those are the things I would say are the main things. And I don't know if we're going to jump into this later, but in terms of professionally, being a mother has really changed how I view opportunities. And so, there have been quite a few opportunities that have come my way, but I know that those opportunities, they're not best for my daughter. They're not going to be what's best for me. And so, when I'm considering different opportunities, that really comes into play. And that's something that's different than when you don't have children. So that's my take.
Well, those are great takes. We often have some common things that we see when we're entering parenthood, but are there anything surprising that you guys ran into in terms of issues with balancing or integrating being a parent or being a mom and being in the field?
I would say yes. For me, fear. Initially when I had my daughter, I was fortunate. Norfolk State raised my daughter in the first years of her life. When I got to Norfolk State, I was, I think, 6 months pregnant with Mel. And they embraced me, and she was born that summer. I just got there. I hadn't even learned how to use the registration system yet. But, we made it work, and I had great leadership. I had mothers in leadership. And so I think that helped me transition. But initially, for the first 2 years of her life, I didn't really bring her into work so much. I didn't really integrate her as much. And then it just took me some time because I had that sense of fear and insecurity. And then I got more comfortable. And then I think about from day one to the end of my time there, I remember watching her at a basketball game. I was working. She's in the stand with the rest of the department kids, we call them. And it was a Mardi Gras night, and they're up there eating cookies and candy, and they're just having a great time. And it's just a vast change from in the beginning until the end. And so I had to become comfortable and get rid of that insecurity and that fear, and be comfortable integrating her into my workspace.
So that fear hits you a little harder.
Yeah, definitely, piggyback off that, there's this fear that I have this fear that, if I'm spending too much time or doing too many things with, my husband or my son, and it's affecting my work, or vice versa, I'm spending so much time on work that it's, affecting my son or my husband. And so I definitely have, that fear. I have come across, some unfortunate and surprising issues, that took me by surprise, and those are things that I had to work through with, that the program that I was working with and with my husband and our administration. And so, those situations were tough and difficult to get through, but I had to put my family, first in those situations. So again, going back to, what I was saying before, having to be intentional and be vocal about what works for my family and what works, for me professionally as well, so that, I'm not always having this constant fear that if I have to leave at 5 or 5:30 to go pick my son up from daycare, that my student athletes aren't feeling like they're not being supported. And so, that's still something that I am working through. I always have this mom guilt if I stay late and I let my husband go pick him up, or then I have, this professional guilt that I'm leaving at 5:30 and all my students are coming into study hall and I'm going to miss checking in with them. And so I definitely feel that, having that fear of, am I giving too much to one side or not giving enough, to the other side?
Yeah, and that balance it's really hard, and that the guilt, the mommy guilt, is real. It's
Yes.
totally real. I have experienced that, and in every phase of my career, to be honest, since I've been a mother, it's just different positions I've been in have required different things,
Mhm.
you know, and it takes time to find that balance. But yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Awesome, awesome. No, thank you for that. I I love the fact in each of your responses, Chastity, you brought up your husband. Dr. Rich, you talked about your beloved community at your department and how individuals have just all came to help. I I would love to hear more about, we hear the phrase, it takes a village often. I would love to hear more about who is your village and how do they help support your work and motherhood identity. We'll start with Chastity again.
Sure. So you're right. I hear that a lot. It takes a village. And, I grew up with, my family right there in town. We did everything together. That's very different than how my husband grew up. And now where I didn't ever go to daycare or anything like that. My parents, my family usually watched me. And, so I grew up, I felt like I had that village that people talk about. And I still feel that way now that I am a mother. But my family's not here. All my family's back in Missouri. All Devon's family is in Jacksonville. And so in terms of family, we don't have a lot of family here in Maryland. Devon's mom lives here. And so she's definitely a part of our village, but she has her own career as well. And so sometimes, we wish that our families live closer when we have conflicts. Tomorrow, for example, we both have recruits that we have to come in for, and they overlap. And so we're trying to plan out what's Jackson gonna do? And because it was kind of, just came up in the last 24 hours, we didn't ask Devon's mom. We're gonna figure it out. But so definitely Devon's mom. I would also say our work family. Our work family is definitely a part of our village. They understand, that we both work with these high level sports, but we also have a toddler. So they give us a lot of grace in terms of when we need to take off, if we need to leave early or if we need to come in late, or often if we need to bring Jackson with us to different work events that are in the evening or on the weekends. And so definitely, our work family is a part of our village, and then our friends that live here as well. I don't want to exclude my family in Missouri or Jacksonville because they will be here in the blink of an eye if we ever really needed them to. But, in terms of the day to day, our village is really our friends that live here in the DMV area. And then our work family, that really gives us grace whenever, we need it. This week, our son was really sick on Monday and Tuesday. So I had to stay home with him on Monday, and then Devon stayed home with him on Tuesday, and then the daycare was closed today. So, both of us have kind of been in and out of the office all week, but it's really helpful and really gives us peace knowing that our work family really understands that. They support that. They, pick up anything that we need in the office. And so that's been really refreshing as new parents that don't have a lot of family in the area.
Yeah, I would agree. Work family is critically important. My work family at Norfolk State, they were incredible. I worked with Christina Ruffin for years, and she, as a mother, her daughter Mel and Elle, they're like two peas in a pod. And so, there were times where the kids are out of school. It's just one of those days, and the kids are in the office with us. We give them their stuff. They go down to the study hall room, and they're in there studying with the rest of the student athletes. And so, just having that group of people in that community around me, there really helped me through probably the harder years of motherhood for me. Where you're still trying to move up the ranks, but you have all these additional responsibilities and trying to figure it out. I'm a single mother, not married yet. And so it looks a little bit different for me. And one thing I have to say, my parents and my aunt, who's my daughter's godmother, they have been critical in supporting me. I'm from about an hour west of Richmond. And so it was about a 2.5-hour drive when I was living in Virginia from my parents. And I have a lot of miles on my car. But they were there. We would meet halfway. If I had an event I had to get to, if I had a weekend where, I just couldn't have her there from dusk to dawn, they would meet me and I would drop her off and pick her up. And so just having that support. And my parents will come into town if I need them. I'll call them my mom. She's a trooper. She was just down here in Jacksonville for a week, even though she had a conference she was preparing for on campus at Virginia State. She's faculty there. And so that family support is critical. And, you know, when I took this job here, it was going to be a transition for me because I was going to be now farther away from my family. It's about a 9-hour drive. And so that was something to consider when making a decision. But my family assured me that this was an opportunity I could not pass up and they would support me through it. And so one thing my parents did for me, they often pull rank on me. I'm sorry if y'all hear my dog in the background. That's my second child. My parents, they pulled rank on me and they said to me, they sat down with me and they said, I know you want to take Mel with you when you first go, but your first 6 months are going to be critical and you're going to be very busy and you have a lot of things to accomplish. So we want her to stay here and finish the school year out with us. And they kind of told me that that's what it was going to be. And I respect them and give them that much leeway in our lives because we're in this together. They're part of my village. And so that's what they're doing. It wasn't even a question. So my daughter's in Virginia now. So that's been hard for me. And so I've been going back and forth and she just spent her spring break here with me. And so I try to, when I tell you I make the best out of those days, we go from dusk to dawn. We get up and my mom is looking at me like, you all need to slow down, but we're going to make the best out of every minute of this day. And so just goes back to family and having a supportive work environment, having people who understand and empathize with your situation. And I think in these spaces, the leadership is so important. And sometimes if you have a leader that really understands what being a parent is, a leader that supports parenthood, this is one person that's signing on now. I think she set the standard at Norfolk State, Ms. Jackie Nicholson, you know, with being able to integrate family into the workplace. And so I've been very fortunate and blessed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the leadership is very important. You know, I think that our director, because he is a father of 3 young kids, he's very graceful and offers a lot of flexibility to his young parents that work in our academic unit. So it is so important to have people that understand and support, you know, working moms and dads, you know, that are in leadership roles.
That's you guys are hitting all the you know, great points. And I was going to ask, what is a key member of that athletic department family that you need on your side? And you guys mentioned the athletic director. One of the things that for me was interesting is when I started connecting with my coaches that were parents. And did you guys have any of those connections that sort of opened up understanding with coaches that had children?
Yeah, you know, I work with men's basketball, so I work with a lot of dads. But you know, there are those coaches that I've connected with that really understand the commitments that I have to have as a parent. You know, I really appreciate, I have to travel with men's basketball every away trip. And so I spent a lot of time on the road the last few months. And it's really refreshing that it's not just I'm on the road to conduct study hall. You know, they're checking in on me. They're asking, you know, about my son and my husband and how, you know, my family life and stuff and everything's going. And so it's important to me to work with coaches that do understand that aspect. And I think that I've been fortunate enough to work with moms and dads as coaches. And so there is that understanding aspect, you know, but to be real too, you know, there's also that expectation that, hey, you're still supporting my student athletes and my student athletes are still, their needs are still being met. And so it's still, you know, a balancing act, but I do feel fortunate enough to work with coaches that understand that my son and my husband, my family is going to come first.
I would definitely agree. I think that has really solidify some of my relationships with my coaches, you know, that to be able to connect at that level. And I had supervised 2 different sports and they were both male coaches and they both were dads. And in every sports supervisor meeting, they ask about my daughter. And I had a tennis coach that would come to my office anytime she was there. And he's like, okay, let's go, Mel. And he would just take her and they would just go and do things on campus. And so I could get some work done. But I think, you know, having that relationship that it helps you relate to your coaches as well, too, as well as them relate to you.
Dr. Rich, you mentioned the competitiveness and, really trying to move up in the industry. And there are a lot of examples, being in this industry, being in any industry as a mom is hard, but we know the competitiveness and the irregular hours that can make the sports industry, collegiate sport, extremely challenging for parents. So what motivates you to continue, both of you, continue your personal growth and professional growth within this kind of competitive, strenuous structure?
Well, for me, I really do it. I do it all for her. I always keep her at the forefront. And I say that in every space, and I mean that genuinely. I do it for her because I feel like if I do this now, this is my goal, to be honest. If I do this now, if I work up the ranks now, I will have time to go to her games later. I really wanted to fast track my education, even though I do want to go back to school, but fast track my education. I wanted to get that out of the way. I wanted to try to move up and do as much as I could on the professional side. So that when, she's at an age where she's going to be competing in games and when she goes to college, I hope to have more balance. I hope to be in a more solidified position where I can go and be there and be present for her. Because I've missed quite a few soccer games, I'm gonna be very honest. Last season, I probably made one game the entire season because the games were on Saturdays and we always had football, and I traveled with football last season as well. So I was at the home games and the away games. And so, I find that I'm trying to make a few sacrifices now so that I can be present later on.
Yeah, she's hitting the spot right on. I'm taking words right out of my mouth. I would definitely say, my son is, the first person that definitely motivates me, my husband as well. But, for my son, I really want him to see what hard work looks like and to be able to be independent and know, how to handle tough situations and challenging situations. And working with men's basketball, I work with a lot of young Black men. And now that I have a young Black son, it's really, I've really, kind of developed more of a kind of this understanding with, some of my basketball student athletes. And so, I get real with them sometimes about it, it's, hey, you're a role model now, and like, is that what you want other young athletes to think about you? And so by being in this field and working in athletics, being a former collegiate athlete, my husband being a former collegiate athlete, and the skills that we learned through keeping education first and being a student athlete, those are the things that we really want to expose our son to. And so he's definitely the motivator for both of us. But my husband, he really motivates me as well. He's always telling me like, you're super mom. I don't know how you do it. You're on the road all the time, and you're coming home, 2, 3 in the morning, and I still nurse my son, and so I'm still not getting a full night's sleep, but as I would like to. But and so he also motivates me as well.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. One of the things that I've taken from both of your conversations, the dimensions of mentorship. Like mentorship has been critical, not for both of you, but the way people have been able to provide an example, and also the way people have poured into you information. Dr. Rich even mentioned with Jackie Nicholson and Christina Ruffin at Norfolk State, everybody collaborating and joining together. I would love to advance this more, who have been mom mentors, and it doesn't have to be individuals who have poured into, but even individuals that you've seen in the field and just said, what, she's balancing so many identities. I've taken something from this, I'm taking something from them. Who are those mom mentors in your space that you've seen? And we'll start with Dr. Rich.
Well, I would definitely say those two women that you just mentioned, because I've watched them do it firsthand. And we're just so envious of Tina and Elle and how they go on trips and they do these different things. And so it's like, Tina, you set the blueprint, and we always say Elle's living the best life ever. And so, we have that example that's in front of us. And then also for me, my mom has been one of the biggest mom mentors, because my mom, she got her education later in life. And so she got her master's, I think we were in middle school, and she got her doctorate while we were in high school. And so we saw her, we saw the grind, we saw what she did. And I think that's what helped to inspire me and understand you still can do it. You know, while you're managing a family, while you're trying to move forward in your professional career, and then also getting your education, advancing your education. And so I would say those three women have definitely been critical in being mom mentors for me.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I was thinking the same thing about, you know, my mom as well. You know, she's been a huge mentor to me, a mom mentor to me as well. And although she doesn't work in college athletics, she does work in higher education and has kind of been my biggest mom mentor. You know, I worked really closely with Dr. Emily Blackman at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga before I came to Maryland. And she was a mom, and although I wasn't a mom when I worked there, you know, she really laid a lot of the values and foundation of how I wanted to be a working mom. You know, I worked closely with Dr. Casey King as well when I was at Florida State. And she was a rock star, being a mom of young kids and working her way up the ladder as well. And then, you know, another mentor person I really look up to is Shanika Mungeon. You know, I worked with her as well at Florida State, and she had a young son there, and she was a single mom, and just seeing how much she has, you know, taken on motherhood and advancing her professional career has been really inspiring. And so, you know, those three women, I think, have been the biggest inspiration to me in terms of mom mentors in the field.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. So well, we're going to get to the last question. You know, in researching for this topic, I saw so many areas where you know, whether through stereotypes, through typecasting, through being segregated based on your intersecting identities, you know, so many people are writing the stories for working mothers. They're typecasting. You know, I wanted to know, you know, how are you writing your own story? How are you creating your own identities while in the midst of navigating through all of these different, you know, social stigmas? And we'll start with Chastity.
You know, I think that's something that I am still working on. You know, but you know, one thing when I was reading this question that I really thought about that I would love to get back into is just journaling, documenting my experiences, things that I have learned being a young mom and a young professional, and being able to kind of look back on those things and self-reflect to be able to grow. And so it's not something I haven't written my own story per se, but it's something that, you know, by being on that panel last week and being involved in this conversation is something that is really important that, you know, I take some time to really do and really look back on how far I've come. You know, I've met a lot of people that are always like, you've come so far, you're doing so much, you know, you're a super mom, you know, I don't understand how you do it. And sometimes I don't understand how I do it. So being able to write about my experiences, journal about those things, be able to look back and self-reflect, I think will really help write my story and kind of shape the future and what I want for myself and for my son and for our family. And so, yeah.
I would fully agree. One thing I always tell myself, because in this role, I'm trying to navigate a new space, navigate a new city, and just navigating different dynamics. And I'm very critical of myself. It's just how I've been my entire life, unfortunately. And so one thing I often remind myself is I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to do this my own way. There's no blueprint for how you have to be a female athletic director or an athletic director. So I want to do it my way and be authentically me. And so like Chastity said, I'm still writing my story. It's totally a draft. And you know, I want to continue to keep my core values at the center of everything I do. And I know that if I continue to do that, the story is going to end well. You know, it's going to have a happy ending. And so I think Chastity also said, you said some really good stuff. I should have wrote it down. You talked about reflecting, and I think that is really important. And so I spent a lot of time just reflecting on the day, reflecting on actions. And it's so funny. I'll tell you a quick funny story. While my mom was here this week, we were driving in the car, and I was driving, she was riding the passenger seat. And I often have conversations with myself, and y'all, I'm not crazy, but this is how I work through things. So I'm in the car and I'm doing hand movements, and she's like looking at me like, who are you talking to? I'm talking to Ivana. And we are working through things. We're reflecting and navigating things. And I think taking those time to really reflect on things, working through things, is really important.
That's amazing. And both of you all stories are amazing. So we're going to allow you to get our listeners to our series out on this one rapid fire question. What is a sentence or phrase mothers in our profession need to hear more of, and one that they need to hear less of?
Okay, I would go with the phrase more of, we can do hard things. That is like my mantra. Comes from Glennon Doyle, her book Untamed. We can do hard things. I often have to tell myself that.
Justin?
This is kind of, kind of simple, but, I think it could explain a lot of things. But I think a lot of women need to hear more of, like, it's okay to take time off. It's okay to not take time off. So just, whatever it is, that it's okay to do. I just think that women or young moms need to hear that it's okay to do X, Y, and Z, whatever it is at that time. And so I think that's a phrase that, I wish that I would hear more, at least, is, it's okay to take off, or it's okay not to take this call because it's 10:30. It's not the end, the end of the world. So
Awesome. Well, again, I think you both have provided not only with your lived experiences, but even on here, the examples that you provide, not only for your workers, your colleagues, and also for your children. We just want to thank you both for the outstanding conversation, and thank you to the audience for listening. We will have all our episodes in a video library for all our viewers who want to rewatch the series. We also would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the ECC subcommittees that have helped us with this programming. Just want to thank you again to our interviewees. Until next time, take care.